Not the peaceful silence people imagined when they thought of open land and wide skies, but a working silence, measured, alert, always listening. Ethan Cole had lived with it for nearly 20 years, ever since he'd come back from a life he never talked about and bought the land no one else wanted. Silence told you things. When cattle were uneasy, the silence shifted. When predators crept close, the silence thinned. When something unnatural entered your land, the silence felt heavy, like it was pressing down on your chest. That afternoon, the silence was crushing. Ethan stood near the southern pasture fence, one boot hooked over the bottom wire, scanning the horizon. The sun hung low, staining the grass gold. Wind pushed softly through the tall weeds, but no birds moved. No insects buzzed, and Lydia wasn't breathing right. She stood 10 paces away, stiff as a post, arms locked around herself. She'd been working for him just over a month, quiet, efficient, grateful for the job in a way that suggested desperation rather than enthusiasm. Normally, she avoided eye contact. Today, she couldn't stop watching one specific place. Ethan followed her gaze to the old ravine. It was nothing special at first glance, just a shallow cut in the earth where runoff collected during heavy rains. A broken fence sagged along its edge, half swallowed by weeds. Ethan hadn't been down there in years. There was no reason to. Yet Lydia looked like a cornered animal. He stepped toward it. Don't. The word came out sharp, almost panicked. Ethan stopped mid-stride and turned to her. What did you say? Lydia swallowed. Her throat worked visibly. She took a step forward, then hesitated, as if afraid to get too close to him. Please, she said, voice barely holding together. Don't go down there. Ethan studied her face. Her skin was pale, almost gray beneath the dirt and sunburn. Dark circles clung under her eyes, the kind that sleep couldn't fix. Her hands trembled, not from cold, from fear. Why? Ethan asked calmly. She shook her head. I can't explain. That was answer enough to raise every alarm he had. There's nothing off limits on this ranch, he said. You know that. Her eyes filled instantly. That place is, she whispered. They said so. They. Ethan straightened. Who's they? She flinched like she'd been struck. Please don't ask me that. The wind shifted. That was when Ethan smelled it. At first, he thought it was old oil or rust carried on the breeze. Then it hit him fully, sharp, metallic, wrong. It crawled up his nose and settled deep in his chest. Blood, old blood. His jaw tightened. You should have told me, he said quietly. Lydia stepped in front of him, blocking his view of the ravine. Her hands clenched into fists at her sides. If you look, she said, tears spilling now, everything changes. Ethan didn't answer. He gently moved her aside. She didn't fight him, she just sagged, like a rope cut loose, whispering over and over, I tried to stop it. Ethan approached the ravine. Each step made the smell stronger. Closer to the edge, the ground changed, flattened grass, scuffed dirt, marks that didn't belong to animals. He crouched, touching the soil. Boot prints, not ranch boots, heavy, industrial, truck traffic. His heartbeat slowed, not sped up. This was the kind of calm that came before violence, the kind he recognized too well. He leaned forward. That was when he saw the first shoe. A small one, pink, child-sized, half buried in mud. Ethan froze. He scanned the ravine carefully now, eyes adjusting, brain cataloging details against his will. Another shoe, a torn backpack with cartoon patches. A piece of cloth snagged on thorny brush, once a blanket. The blanket was stiff, darkened. His stomach turned. No, he muttered, more to himself than anyone else. Behind him, Lydia sank to her knees. I clean up after, she sobbed. They make me clean. They tell me it's trash. They tell me not to ask questions. Ethan's vision tunneled. Near the base of the ravine, partially hidden by dirt and rusted scrap metal, sat something that absolutely did not belong there. A shipping container, half buried, scratched, its doors dented outward. Ethan felt cold spread through him. He descended slowly, carefully, as if afraid the ground itself might scream if he moved too fast. The container loomed closer. That was when he heard it. A sound so faint it might have been imagined. Tap. He stopped breathing. Tap, tap. It came from inside the container. A weak, irregular knock. Then silence. Time stretched thin. Ethan placed a hand against the metal. It was warm. Warm from the inside. His chest tightened painfully. He pressed his ear closer. A whisper drifted through the steel, dry, hoarse, unmistakably human. Hello. Ethan stepped back, knees threatening to buckle. Behind him, Lydia whispered in a broken voice, "They said if I talked, they'd put my brother in there too." Ethan looked at the container. At the scratches, at the shoes, at the quiet land that had trusted him to protect it, and something ancient, disciplined, and merciless rose up inside him. He reached for his phone. Scene 1 ends here. He sprinted back up the ravine, boots tearing through grass and dirt, lungs burning. Lydia looked up at him from the ground, terror and hope colliding in her eyes. "Get to the house," he said, already pulling his keys from his pocket. "Lock the doors. Do not open them for anyone. Anyone. But, now." She scrambled to her feet and ran. Ethan jumped into his truck and tore down the dirt road, dust exploding behind him. His mind was sharp, focused, terrifyingly calm. He dialed 911, but he didn't stop there. One call wasn't enough. He made 3 more, to a state investigator he'd helped once years ago, to a search and rescue contact, and to someone whose number he hadn't used since a life he buried. "Container," he said when the man answered. "Kids inside, ranch land. I need it quiet and fast." The response came instantly. "We're rolling." Ethan slammed the brakes near the ravine and grabbed bolt cutters, crowbar, water, anything his hands touched. He ran back down the slope, heart hammering now, not from fear, but from urgency. He cut the rusted lock. It snapped open with a sound too loud for the moment. Ethan yanked the container doors. The smell hit him like a wall: stale air, sweat, rust, sickness. His eyes adjusted slowly. Inside were 4 children, 2 boys, 2 girls, curled together, filthy, dehydrated. One of the boys lifted his head, eyes glassy but alive. "You came," the boy whispered. Ethan dropped to his knees. "I'm here," he said, voice rough. "You're safe now." He worked fast. Water first, small sips, coats wrapped around shaking bodies. One girl clung to his arm, fingers digging in as if afraid he'd disappear. "Don't leave," she begged. "I won't," he promised. "I swear." Sirens cut through the air minutes later, then more. Black SUVs, state vehicles, unmarked trucks. Men and women moved with grim efficiency, their faces changing the moment they saw the container. No one spoke for a long time. When they did, it was quiet, controlled, furious. The children were carried out one by one, wrapped in blankets. Medics checked vitals, murmuring reassurances. Lydia stood near the house, shaking as officers gently took her statement. She cried, not from guilt, but from release. "They said it was storage," she sobbed. "They said if I asked questions, I'd be next." "You did the right thing," an officer told her. "You survived." But it didn't end there. Because predators never operate alone. Investigators followed the tracks: truck routes, fake permits, shell companies. The container wasn't the first. It was just the one that got caught. By dawn, 3 men were in custody. By noon, 7 more. By nightfall, the story broke. Not the ranch, not Ethan, the network, trafficking, illegal labor, children taken from migrant families and stored until buyers arrived. And then came the knock on Ethan's door. Not loud, respectful. A man in a dark suit stood on the porch, badge visible. "You saved lives," he said. "We need you to testify." Ethan looked past him, out toward the land. The ravine. The quiet. "I will," he said. "But don't make this about me." The man nodded. "We won't." Weeks passed. The children recovered. Families were found. Some reunions were tearful and loud. Others were quiet and aching. One boy, the one who'd spoken first, came back once with a social worker. He handed Ethan a folded piece of paper. It was a drawing. A man standing in front of a big open box. Sun overhead, doors wide. At the bottom, in shaky letters, it said, "Thank you for looking." Ethan framed it. Lydia stayed on the ranch. She worked harder than ever, but she slept through the night now. Sometimes she stood near the ravine, staring down, and Ethan stood beside her, not speaking, just present. The land grew quieter again. But it wasn't the same silence as before. It was the kind that comes after truth. After justice. After someone chooses not to look away. And far from the ranch, in concrete rooms with no windows, men who thought they could hide behind threats and steal learned a brutal lesson.